Alright, so this easy hack I'm about to talk about is called dopamine loading. This is the reason why I was able to get 3 A stars in my A levels with barely any actual effort, and I didn't have to ghost my friends, or I didn't have to become a huge nerd to actually do it. So before you already get bored of this and click off and scroll for the next hour, let me stop wasting your time and I'm going to explain to you exactly how you can do it. So look, I'm going to go through what a typical day looked like for me before I used dopamine loading, and if you're anything similar to this, you should definitely listen to this and try and do it as well, because it's going to have huge improvements on your grades, your studying, and your life in general. So these two graphs here show as time going on throughout the day. So this is me waking up and me going to bed, and then this right here is your dopamine level during that time. And for those of you who don't know, dopamine is the chemical in your brain that releases that feeling of reward. Anytime a process or action releases dopamine, you want to do it more, you start to crave it more, because it kind of makes you feel good and it makes you feel rewarded. So this is what life was actually like for me. The first thing I do after I woke up was right here, I would check my phone. Now, if you understand how dopamine works, you can trick your brain and control it into actually achieving your goals through releasing dopamine at certain points in the day. Now, obviously, checking your phone first thing in the morning, you're gonna see all those likes and follows you got on social media. You're gonna scroll on TikTok for a bit. That's all gonna release that insane amount of dopamine in your brain because it's so nice to see and it's enjoyable. I was basically a zombie without even thinking. When I got up, the first thing I do was check my phone. And obviously that made me feel really, really good because it released that dopamine. So the next thing I do is obviously, I'd go to school, I'd go in the bus and stuff, and it'd be pretty boring. So obviously my dopamine would go down again. And then before school, I'd go to a shop and I'd say, you know what? Those donuts, those sweet things, that really high carb breakfast looks really, really, really good to me. So you know what I do? I'd buy it and I'd eat that really unhealthy, sugary, high carb breakfast. And again, that would give me this insane spike in dopamine, making my dopamine levels go on again, making me feel rewarded, making me feel good. And then I'd go to school, basically this point here. But because my dopamine levels are so low down, I can barely focus. I can't listen in class because it's just not exciting to me. The teacher's speaking, I'm doing questions, but the knowledge just isn't going into my head and I'm not actually learning anything. I'm not actually achieving my goals at all. And that's because these huge spike happens, and it means my dopamine levels are going to be so cooked, so fried, that I'm all the way down here and I just can't focus in school. So then obviously I go home, maybe I'll even try and do some homework or study again, but I can't do it. And that's this point right here. So then obviously again, maybe I'd watch some Netflix, or maybe even I'd play some video games in the night at this time, before eventually I finally go to bed and my dopamine levels go back down. You can see during this day, my dopamine levels go up and down and up and down and up and down. They're literally leveling off. And when it actually comes time to doing something important, to doing something that I need to do, my dopamine levels are at this bottom and I can't actually do it because I find it so boring. It's not as exciting as scrolling on TikTok. It's not as exciting as going on Netflix and stuff. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. Now, let me show you what it's like with dopamine loading. When I wake up in the morning, I don't reach for my phone. I don't do any of that. I get up, breathe, and I go to the shower. I let the water hit my face, and that's what wakes me up. Maybe even get some sunlight as soon as I walk out the door and on my way to school. I haven't had this massive spike of dopamine here. All I'm getting are these small amounts where my level's basically down here. And I'm still not bored, and I'm feeling quite excited. And this is basically all the stimulation I get. And then I go to school and I actually don't even eat breakfast. I wouldn't even eat breakfast most of the time. That's just a personal thing for me. But even if you did, you wouldn't have a big high carb diet. You'd have at most maybe some protein, some eggs, at most something like that. And then now you can see where I'm going with this. When I actually go to school, my dopamine is at this level. This is its normal level. Look, during the day, this is basically the average is like here. So I'm at the normal level. I'm even below the normal level. So I'm not going to be feeling bored. I'm not going to be feeling unexcited. I'm actually going to be engaged in the lesson. I'm actually going to absorb that content and actually be present. I was able to hear something once, try something once, and actually learn it, actually get it. I wouldn't have to retry 1,000 times like I would with this, because studying wouldn't feel boring. Studying wouldn't feel unexciting. It just feel normal to me. It just feel like something that I get to do because I don't have these insane dopamine spikes that I had here. And then maybe at this point, I'd go home and I'd get some more studying done and actually get that homework done. I'd complete it because it wasn't boring. I wouldn't grab my phone. I wouldn't have that urge to do something else instead of actually studying. And then I'm not a zombie, okay? I promise you I'm not a zombie. At the end of the day, maybe towards the night, I'd finally watch some Netflix, scroll on my phone a little bit, and just relax. Maybe I'd even play some video games, whatever you want to do, whatever actually you enjoy and stuff. I do that at the end. But that's once I've got all that work done during the day. Once I've done everything and my dopamine levels have been low the entire day, finally it spikes up once everything is done. So that is essentially the main differences between these two things. And obviously, as you can tell from the title, this is with dopamine loading and this is good and this is bad and this is what I was like. And if you are like this, then trust me, you need to do this process instead. A big difference you might be thinking now that I've explained both of them is that I end this day, I'm at this point when I go to bed, I know that all my work is done. I've finished everything. But with here, once this happens to you and you go through these spikes, you end the day with your work not being done. You haven't studied, you haven't done your homework, you haven't actually learned anything from that day. That's the difference between someone that uses dopamine loading and someone that doesn't. So how do you actually do it? What's the important parts that you need to actually take into account to do dopamine loading? So the first thing you need to do is limit high dopamine instant gratification activities. Stuff like checking your phone first thing in the morning or scrolling on TikTok while you're on the bus. You need to literally completely cut that out so you don't get those instant little hits of dopamine and give you that crazy spike during the day. That's what's going to make your brain feel super bored when you actually try and study and stuff. The next thing is you need to focus on and get dopamine from good stuff. That good stuff I'm talking about might be studying, maybe going to the gym, maybe going on a run or speaking to people, etc. You get the point. When you do those things, it's hard. Okay, I hate running, but I still did it because after I did that run, I got this dopamine, I got this release of dopamine, and I felt so good after that it made me want to do other things. It made me feel rewarded and it made me feel good. And the way I felt good after I did a run, after I went to the gym, after I did this natural good stuff is not the same as when I felt good from scrolling on TikTok and doing these things. It's different. It makes you feel different in a much better way. And you feel good at the end of the day knowing what you've done. But when you do this, I think we can all agree that you feel horrible. And the last thing is get this in your head about this concept of work first and then reward later. I think I've said this so many times on my YouTube, on my TikTok, and all of my socials when I speak about productivity and exams and stuff. Right here, I'm working, I'm studying, I'm doing all of those hard things, and then at the end, I get that reward. I'm not a robot, okay? I want to enjoy myself like everybody else. The difference is I do it at the end of the day. I do it once all the important tasks are done for the day. That's what dopamine loading is all about. Okay, so that's why it's so hard to study. That's why it's so hard to get your work done, because you get your reward first and then there's no incentive. And then you think you can do work after that, but it's too difficult. No one can actually do that. You need to do that hard work first, do that hard stuff, get on with your day that way, and then get that reward later. Watch your Netflix later, scroll on social media later, once you've done all your important tasks for the day. If you do this day by day and you stay consistent with it, you're going to build progress like never before. And you're literally just going to improve like crazy from this process, from dopamine loading. If you're anything like me and want some extra help, some extra resources, or anything to kind of make you more productive and a better student, then I'd say check out my free community, Hustle Hack Academy. I'll leave a link down below in the description. And in this free community, I literally have a completely free mini course using things like these and tons of other stuff to make you a better student. It's free, so why not check it out? I hope I explained this well to you. I hope you understand it, and I hope everything goes well for you and you smash your exams. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.